All right. Good Friday morning, KW Prosperity. It is Matt and Mary Beth with you today. We're back again,
Okay.
continuing our MREA series. Um, and I'm excited because I think we announced yesterday, but just to reiterate, starting next week, Monday through Thursday, we will be doing the MREA like we've been doing. And then on
Hmm.
Fridays, we'll be doing the MREI, the
That's right.
Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and we'll have some special guests on those calls.
Yeah, super excited about that. I also want to encourage everyone. There is to go along with what we're going to be moving into for Fridays, which is going to be covering the MREI, which is the MRE Investor, MRE Millionaire Real Estate Investor. There is a Mark King wealth building group,
Hmm.
and I would just encourage everybody to look for it on Facebook. I watched his session this morning at 8:30.
Yep.
It's 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern. And today the discussion was a quick 25-minute discussion on looking at our income and understanding how much of it should go to taxes versus living expenses versus savings. So, and yes, while that's it's an ideal situation to get to some of those percentages, they were talking about being aware, financially aware
Hmm.
is the first step. So anyway.
Absolutely. Well, good. So now, as we dive into the materials for today, so we ended yesterday by going over the myth understandings. So we did the 6 myth understandings, and
Hmm.
now we're heading into page 67, which is really still about the think section of the triangle. Think a million. So to really start today, so I was going to start with the quote that's on the page of page 68. The quote, it says, "Some men see things as they are and say, 'Why?' I dream things that never were and say, 'Why not?'" Um, so ultimately today we're looking at the mindset piece and ultimately the 9 ways that an MREA thinks. And you know, I think I don't know if you want to dive into it. We'll get through as many as we can today. Maybe we'll get through all of them.
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing was we have to understand that we've aligned with Gary Keller. So
Yeah.
Gary Keller is the epitome of think big. It even explains in the first page about how when he first started Keller Williams, he used to answer the phone as Keller Williams International,
Hmm.
and I want to say he was like a 10-man office, and at that level of a 10-man local. Keller was his last name. Williams was Joe Williams, his original partner's last name. To think on a scale of we're going international,
Hmm.
and now to see that we're number one in the world is pretty fascinating correlation of how he thought and what we became. So
Yeah.
it's all about how you think.
Exactly, and he does continue that on the next couple pages where he says, before you start actually diving into real estate, you need to work to learn before you work to earn. And the key takeaway there is there's people who sometimes just dive in and just which some people see that as a good thing. Yet if you're not taking a step back and understanding why you got in the business and creating a mindset that's going to power yourself to success, then there's going to be a disconnect there.
Well, and education, as I can see, one of our viewers that's on, I know education is just really important to her as well. Um, Anything that you want to master, you're going to have to put some time in that isn't paid on.
Yep.
The question when I get into business with, even when I get into business with staff members in a market center, the question of or the statement of, oh, that's not my job, or, well, if I do that, am I going to get paid extra? It should never ever come out of the mouth. In that
Yep.
we look to have people in our organization that want to strive to something better and understand that there may be a few hours extra put in here or there or on a task that you don't know how to do, so you got to learn how to do it so that you could do your job better, more efficiently, higher productivity. And so I think that's something that I've adopted through making sure that the MREA has been a foundational book, model, systems in all the businesses I've helped grow. including our real estate agents. And so when they're hiring into their team as well, to make sure that the mindset of their environment outside of our office environment is also protected, in that the thoughts of the people, the inner circle, as we talked a little bit about yesterday and in previous sessions, is so important, that the way we think,
Yeah,
and that we have to experience certain things, and those lessons, they're priceless, and that's the way you're going to actually accomplish something at a very high successful level, is failing forward and putting your time in.
absolutely. And I think, the example that he uses in the work to learn before you work to earn section is doctors or people in the medical profession.
Sure.
In order for them to get licensed and to be able to, become a surgeon or to get to that next phase, they go through about 12 years of school. They go through about 12 years of practice, 12 years of learning, 12 years of spending a lot of money and investing in themselves to be able to get to that stage of getting to do what they want to do. So that's the epitome of working to learn before working to earn.
I actually have one even better though,
Mm-hmm.
because this is my in my DNA is artists.
Mm-hmm.
How many artists do we know that did not become famous until way after they died, when all
Yep.
their pieces were found in a field? And so that artist worked all those years sculpting beautiful marble and painting frescoes, and never saw the fruits of it. We get to enjoy the fruits of it hundreds of years later. And
Yep.
so, that's why it's really important. And in this chapter, we talk about this, is to find your big why. Yep. And be attached to a passion. Passion is what will push you through those challenging times. And maybe we could share a little bit from a call that we were on yesterday with Matt Green once we get through a few of these.
Yeah, well, and I like what on our Facebook page, Kristen Cooper commented. She said, "Be a sponge," and I think that does kind of sum up this
she's
whole
a sponge.
section.
She's the best sponge out there.
Yeah.
Love that lady.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really powerful, because everything that you're doing, make sure you're absorbing it and make sure that you're just learning from it. And
yeah.
So I think that that's really good. So on page 71. Gary talks about the 9 ways a millionaire real estate agent thinks. He writes about 1/3 of the Think a Million formula is attitude and perspective. When you're looking to change your habits, you need to be more precise and a little more on purpose. So basically, kind of, in the theme of what we've been talking about, Gary has foundational, out of the 9 ways the millionaire real estate agent thinks, he's got 2 foundational ways that a top agent thinks, and the other are supportive.
Right.
So the 2 big ones, the foundational ones, are think powered by a big why, and then number 2, which is think big goals and big models. So do you want to start with the think powered by a big why?
I do. I want to share something, and I think I'll get it prepared so that we could share it out with the group, and then we can start with it next week as well. I was on a call with Matt Green, and Matt, you were also on this call, and there was a question that we went through a series of, well, let me just show you here. There was a series of points in a journey of ups and downs, and optimism down to pessimism versus time. And one of the questions, and we'll talk about this in a future session, is why does my work matter? There were really great questions to start to get you to think about, what is your big why? Why are you attached to becoming successful? It says, what's at stake if I stop pushing myself?
Yeah.
What is truly at stake? What are you going for? What are you grateful? What do you want your life to look like? And especially at a time like this, you always have to be asking yourself that and making sure you're checking in to assess if you're going in the right direction. And yet sometimes you need to, even on a weekly basis, to just check yourself, ask yourself, like, what do you want out of life? What do you want out of this situation? What do you want out of this relationship? and then take action towards it. So why does my work matter was a real good question that made me think about quite a bit.
Hmm.
But he talks about this valley of despair, that we come from a place where we're highly optimistic. It's called uninformed optimism, where we got this really great goal. We're attached to it because it's making us feel good just talking about it. Maybe we've seen other people do it, and it looks like it's going to be super success. And then you start to maybe take action, and you become to find yourself on the other side of the line, which is informed pessimism. Now you're starting to realize how much work it's going to take to get done, or that there are challenges that you didn't think about.
Hmm.
You have to go around or through or with others. And so at that point, it's very crucial for you to get attached to your big why
Yep.
and understand why you are building a business, or whatever you have your heart set on that you're doing right now. And if you don't check yourself and start to look at different, you'll find yourself in this valley of despair. And that's where most people just give up and quit.
Hmm.
And they quit on whatever they were going for, and they go right back to falling in love with a new idea and a new dream. And yet they don't ever resolve where that pessimism, that the informed pessimism, and what steps can I do to get myself out of it, that they wind up just doing the same of the same of the same. And so with first two fundamental um, the first two fundamental ways a millionaire thinks, powered by a big why, big goals, and big models, you have to figure that part out first. You have to figure out why you're doing it, why your work matters, what your passion is. Otherwise, you will fall in that valley of despair, and you'll just continue to make a pivot and not accomplish what you want to, not because you can't, just because you're not pushing through.
Well, and oftentimes I find that sometimes people's whys aren't big enough, and you need to figure out what your big why is, because sometimes they think they have
What's
their
an
big why.
example of that, Matt?
Um, well, it could just be, it could be something family related. Like my big why is not necessarily my family, but I know a lot of people. I mean, it is, but I don't have kids. But I know a lot of people. It is their children, as an example of a big why. And that's the type of stuff that will pull you out of the doldrums, as you're saying, the valley of despair. When you're having those days where you're like, oh, is this worth it? Like, why am I doing this? Like, is this working? You're doing it for your big why. Maybe it is your children, maybe it is your family, maybe it's just to be the best that you can be, maybe it's
Yes.
whatever. um, One thing that I did like, though, in this book that Gary writes, because this really resonated with me. um, think about when you're about to go on a vacation, the day
Mm-hmm.
before you go on vacation. Think about that day. You're usually super productive. You're coming in, you're doing all the things
So
you need
much
to do.
done.
You're doing the appointments you need to do. Any emails that are frivolous, you're like, that can wait. You're delegating stuff out. You're being as productive as you possibly can, because
Prioritize.
exactly, you're prioritizing, and you're setting yourself up in position to then go on that vacation and make sure everything's wrapped up before then. So while going on vacation, and maybe traveling, somebody's big why, who knows? But
Yep.
going on vacation may not be the big why, but this is an example of what a big why or what a purpose can do to you, during that day.
And I would say, like, if you've identified, well, going on vacation and traveling and seeing the world, what would happen if you didn't get to see the world?
Hmm.
And maybe it's not just the act of going on vacation, or ask yourself, what about going on vacation or seeing the world am I attached to? What about it is? Oh, well, I want to see culture. And so there's, because what I will tell you is, along the way to what you believe is success, because it's just going back to yesterday's conversation on E to P, or was it the day before, is every time you reach that level of success, you'll go, oh, all right, well, that's not success yet. I want the next level. I want the next level. You'll continue to want to grow if you're a growth minded person. And for some of us, we get to a level, and it's okay. But you'll continue to want to grow, and you're going to have um, to assess your big why. And so if you were to say, I want to travel the world, and it doesn't happen in a year or 2 years. Well, what about traveling the world is really the big why, so
Yeah.
that you can make sure that you're giving yourself little treats along the way to getting to the real big goal, right? So I don't want to get stuck on this too much, and yet it's not getting stuck on this, because as you can see, Gary's identifying these two things as the foundational way of thinking. And we know thinking controls our emotions and our feelings, which then controls our actions, and our actions control our results.
Well, and I think, yeah, and I was flipping through the pages because I had made a note somewhere in here. He was talking about a flock of geese. And essentially, there's always, there's that V shape, and you got the lead, I think it was with geese, but you got the,
Amazing.
yeah, something, you got the one goose in the front, and then you got the others kind of behind it. So think of
Yep.
your big why and all of these supporting thinking tactics of a top agent, is that your big why is ultimately the one that leads and kind of carries and drags the other things behind it. Um, and I think that that's very powerful. And I don't want to get too hung up on this. However, ultimately, if you don't have your big why mapped out, it's going to be very hard to hit the goals that you want to hit, because as Gary writes, and I know you're in the same boat as I am, and I know Bill and Ron, in terms of energy being very important, Gary
Yep.
writes that because a big why brings big focus and big energy, high achievers always have a big why. So what comes along with the big why, the focus and the energy, is what's really going to make you successful. So without the big
Mhm.
why, a little why, as he says, brings little focus and little energy and kind of a lack of care. So it's like, who cares if I do it or don't do it, because
That's
the
right.
why is not big enough.
That's right. And just to give you guys some, to be financially comfortable, that might be a now why.
Hmm.
When you get out of COVID, it may be, no, I want to so once again, have some activities with yourself, review, go back into these pages, into the book, reread, do it often, maybe make it an annual thing, and then weekly you're checking in on your goals. As you can see, I have a board and calendar, and so I think I shared in previous sessions, on the other side of that calendar was the original 2020 plan. And we just have to kind of crumble that up, and not make new plans, but we're making the next 90-day plan, and we can only live in the 90-day chunks right now. But we're not giving up on our big why, and we're not giving up on our big goals. My husband and I are making strategic moves right now to ensure that we can continue to do that. So my question this morning to Mark King was, how do we get ourselves closer to that 25% of our income? That's what you should be living on. And he said, double the income. And so while that seems, yeah, sure, double the income right now, I need you guys to be doubling down on your activities. So double the income comes at the end of the year. When this opens up, you will be the agents that are positioned to grab the market share. Please.
Absolutely. And I would also say, like, if you're not sure what your big why is, or you need guidance or support, let Mary Beth or I know. You can do the activity on page 77 that Gary outlines, which is about going through the big why, and then why is that important? Why is that important? What will that allow you to do? It takes you through uh, that whole process. So just let us know.
Yeah.
Um,
And I hope, just a side note is, please make sure you have like a highlighter, some tabs, come, read along with us in the book, because we are pointing out the pages. And once again, you can also go to that website, Keller Inc.
yep.
INK.com, and there's tons of resources. I know there's an activity for the big why as a
Yes.
resource as well. Okay.
Well, and I would also recommend reading The One Thing, if and then we'll probably get
Well,
into that. I've got
Matt,
my one thing over on my
that's what I
bookshelf.
was showing you. I have the whole instructor manual. We're gonna do that next, dude.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I love The One Thing. That's actually one of my favorite books that I've ever
Mhm.
read. Um, so the second, uh, think like a top agent, is think big goals and big models.
That's right.
So ultimately, if you have big goals, then to reach them, you will inevitably begin a quest for big models. Likewise, big models will drive you toward the achievement of big goals, even if that was not your intention. So
Sure.
ultimately, as we're talking here, if you don't have a big why, if you don't have big goals, if you don't have big models, and then if you don't have big habits, then you're not going to be able to hit your goals. So this part here, pages 78 and 79, Mary Beth, reminded me of the shift section where they talk about acting your wage. Essentially, like, do you have the habits of somebody that is going to earn $1 million this year, or do you have, $100,000 habits? Like, what habits do you have in your business?
Yes, and so ultimately, whatever you are earning, those are the type of habits you have. We're not, there is no judgment.
Yeah.
It's just, it is what it is what it is. Now, there are definitely things that happen, and like right now, Corona, this is something that we could not have foreseen, and it may affect some people unfairly.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just talk in a normal situation. We do have control of what our habits are. In the next 30 days, we could choose to just kind of lay low, or we could go into double down activity mode. You get to choose. As far as your habits, though, I will just be real with you for a second. Accountability is one of the most challenging habits to commit to.
Yeah.
Accountability to a partner, to your spouse, to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell you that everything changed in my world, in my business world, when I fully committed to the accountability of my coach.
Yeah.
And I have a few different coaches, and you should have different coaches. You should have, a physical coach, a spiritual coach, financial coach, business coach, all that, mindset coach. I fully believe in coaching, and too much coaching, there's no such thing as too much coaching. And so I lost what I was saying is,
Well, while you're trying to get your train of thought, one thing I did want to highlight on page 79, and you got it?
I got it. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead
Yes.
before I
Is
go.
that it's just that when you fully submit to, it may just be like a suggestion of, well, you can get up a half hour earlier, or, stop eating after 7. There may be things that you're not going to want to hear. You're going to say, well, is that really going to matter? Is a half hour going to really make a difference? Is 15 minutes extra walking, is that going to make a difference? And yes, all those little things, the way you manage your calendar is going to make a difference. So I'm just going to encourage you that to become accountable to your schedule, to your commitments, is probably the number one game changer that happens in my business. And that would be, I would think, on top 3 of habits to form is being accountable.
Absolutely. Accountability is key, because if you don't have accountability, then no one's going to be able to track, well, are you doing this or are you not doing this, and holding you to your goals.
Thank you for
Um,
bearing with me.
yeah. Well, so
To
the
a
other thing that I did
suspect.
want to highlight that I like here, I like the story, and Michelle, who's on the call, I know she's a big runner, and has done marathons and half marathons. One of the things here, it says the habits that you create will either help you reach your goals or hamper your attempts.
Mm-hmm.
Big goals and big models have a powerful magnetic effect. They pull us through all the smaller goals along the way. And God bless you, what I wanted to highlight was they talk about, for a runner, training for the marathon, running 26.2 miles is a big goal to have. However, after years of people doing it, studying it, experimenting, and saying, okay, if this is the pathway, this is the model, in order for you to do that, whether it's running, maybe you start with 2 to 3 miles a day, then you increase to 5. My brother did this recently, but one of the things that they say in here and that they highlight is essentially, as you start doing these smaller goals, you build momentum, and the bigger goals start to not feel so bad, because then next thing you know, it's like, okay, well, I can do 26.2 miles, like, and it's still a huge accomplishment, and you still feel drained,
Mm-hmm.
yet at the same time, having that big goal and having a template for how to get to that big goal, the systems model is there. So it's no different in real estate. We've been talking about the law of the lid a lot.
Yeah.
We have the templates to say, okay, if you want to have a $15 million business, a 20 million, a 90 million, a 250 unit business, we have the people in our world who have done that. So it's just like the marathon runner. You just have to follow the template and follow the models that they're using, and you can do it too.
Absolutely. However, you have to put the work in. It's not just the
Yeah.
formula. You put the cake in the oven and it's baking, and you have to put the work in.
Yeah.
And you can't miss the eggs, or you can't miss the water, and you got to make sure you beat it 50 times. there's a formula to it, and you can't skip any of the parts.
And I like the graph that's figure 4 on the bottom of page 80,
Yeah.
which really shows, you've got the $2.5 million habits, you've got the $5 million habits, the 10 million, but it's all within the big box. So you have to go sequentially through the process. But if you have the big model of the $40 million producer, you're just going through stepping stones. If you're
You
only
know,
following the $2.5 million model, you're only going to ever be able to get to there.
I would love to maybe, who'd be a great one for this, and maybe we could talk to Teresa today,
Mm-hmm.
is at 40 million, she has $40 million habits, right? She's a $40 million producer right now. I know that we could look at her journey and say, okay, well, what changed from 20 million to 40 million? What was the one habit that was added? What changed from 10 to 20? What was the 1, 2, 3 habits that were added or sharpened? Or what were some of the things that you let go of in order to go from 5 to 10 to 20 to 40? So, and have that conversation and get back to you on that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's true with anyone. It's like, what changed in your world? What habits did you change to break through that ceiling of achievement from, one level to the next? So I hope one thing that everyone on these calls on Facebook and on Zoom, one thing that you're seeing is that this is all just expanding, like chapter by chapter or page by page. It's all building on top of each other. So I hope you're seeing sequentially why the think piece is going to be critical before we get to the earn piece.
Yeah,
Working to learn before you work to earn.
that's right. And so I think we can stop here
Yeah.
because we have quite a few to finish. But I do want to remind you that if you have not signed up for Bold Pivot, I am highly encouraging you to sign up for Bold Pivot. It's $99 for the whole month, and it's putting you in an environment 4 days out of the week, something that you can plug into, get you scripts for now, get you an environment where you're just networking on a global level. And I don't see anything bad that can come from spending 4 days in
Mm-hmm.
a bold environment in a time like now. And it's not hours upon hours. It's just 2 days on a Tuesday, 2 days on a Thursday, and then you have some options on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we're going to be getting some information out to you over the weekend and then again on Monday. And we are highly encouraging you to get signed up for Bold Pivot. I do believe it's going to be the game changer
Yeah.
for our company, and it's open for anyone to take. So,
Well, Mary
also
Beth,
share it with your friends outside of KW.
yeah, and I would also say next week where you guys have Jeff Quinton, I think on Thursday, right?
Yes, we do.
And he's another one who's got big systems, big models, and big habits.
Jeff Quinton is Thursday at 2:00. And those of you who are watching now, I put it in your Google Calendar. That's the way that Matt and I say super organized. We just throw our Zoom link right into the Google Calendar, so we just know where we're supposed to be every day.
Yeah.
And Jeff Quinton is somebody who I personally helped bring over to KW in a few years ago. And he went from having 100 contact days with his team to having 1,000 contact days with his team.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a small thinker. He's not, he built his business from ground up, and he's a dear friend of mine. So please tune in
Yeah,
for next
definitely
Thursday.
check into that. And then on Tuesday, we have Katie Benson and Holly Priestner, who work with Chris Suarez, one of the top teams in KW. And one of the things that I would say, that's at 2:00 on Tuesday. We'll be posting
That is going to be
links.
phenomenal. Yeah.
But I would say now more than ever, it would be great to plug into that because Katie and Holly are masters at building virtual relationships because they're building Chris's team essentially all over the country. So
That's right.
this hiccup with the coronavirus for them was actually just business as usual because they're so adept at that. So that's, attend both of them next week. It's going to be great to learn how to do the virtual relationships and then also create ironclad follow-up systems and then lead into Jeff Quinton, who has huge systems, huge models to be able to plug into as well.
I know. I love all the stuff that's going on. There's a fabulous interview. If some of you are on Facebook and looking around for some stuff to watch, Via Williams, Vija, Via Williams. She works with Ben Kinney's companies. She interviewed Chris Suarez, I believe it was yesterday.
Yep.
Fantastic interview. So I highly, highly encourage everyone to listen to that. He starts out just sharing the the environment he grew up in with the great parents and a great dad, and yet the mindset of the poor dad and not the rich dad. And so what a wonderful interview and a great thing to watch before we hit Tuesday, because Chris is the leader of that
That
group
group.
of
Yeah.
Katie and
All right. So we will see you guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys Monday at 11 back here for our MREA call. Today at 1, we are going to still be doing our mortgage call with Shane Force. So we'll see
Yep.
you back in about an hour and a half. Okay.
Finance. Okay.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
You're welcome.
You're a gift, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye.